Smart is not a new brand. In fact, very few of us may be able to remember that Smart was originally in Malaysia with a range of very compact cars designed to work perfectly in city streets and urban sprawls. However, a lot of time has passed since then, and Geely has now become involved, and now Smart is a 50-50 joint venture between Geely and Mercedes-Benz. And the first model is this, the Smart #1, where Mercedes-Benz has designed everything that you can see and Geely's done all the stuff that you cannot. And at 220,000 ringgit, the Smart #1 Premium that we have here really does aim to put premium in the premium compact EV space. And in this video, we'll find out exactly what I mean. My name is AIMAN ABDULLAH, this is Malaysian Motoring, this is our review of the Smart #1. Now, the #1 is available in Malaysia in three guises. There is Pro, Premium and Brabus. Now, the Premium and Brabus models use the same 66.4 kilowatt-hour NMC battery, which is capable of propelling this particular vehicle to 440 kilometers WLTP and the Brabus up to 400. Now, the base Pro model uses a smaller LFP battery with a shorter WLTP rated range. Now, the Pro and Premium do have the same performance with one motor over the rear axle able to propel this car from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.7 seconds, whereas the Brabus benefits from an added second motor over the front axle, which is then able to reduce at 0 to 100 time to just 3.9 seconds. Now, in terms of charging, the Premium and Brabus models will be able to DC fast charge it up to 150 kilowatts, able to do 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes. AC charging on these two cars is also very impressive, with AC charging of up to 22 kilowatts, which means that you can charge this car from dead to full in about 3 hours. The base model has slower DC charging and slower AC charging as well. Now, in terms of exterior specifications, the Pro and Premium actually come pretty well equipped. Both cars come as standard with the CyberSparks LED Plus Matrix LED headlights, which come with an adaptive high beam function, able to use high beam while dipping the beam wherever there are other road users to ensure that you have maximum visibility without adding glare. And because this is a ground-up EV, you can tell that a lot of this design was made to truly maximize the capabilities of this vehicle. So you have a very large downturn lower grille, but nothing up here, again to improve aerodynamics. You also have these little intakes here which create a curtain of air over the front wheels, again to improve aerodynamics. Now, because this car was designed by Mercedes-Benz, there are some elements here that do seem a little bit familiar. For example, the LED daytime running light signature does look very similar to what we've seen from Mercedes-Benz EQ models. However, the overall treatment from the front is very uniquely Smart, and it is, of course, set off by the Smart badging on the front. You get it scripted and written out on the front and on the rear. The Smart badge only appears on the side, where you'll find it on the C-pillar and, of course, in the center caps of the alloy wheels. Now, both the Premium and the Brabus ride on 19-inch alloy wheels wrapped in Continental Eco Contact 6 tires. The designs are slightly different, with the Brabus getting a dual-tone diamond turn finish, whereas these ones get this lovely sort of grey and silver dual-tone finish instead. Now, while the designs themselves are, again, to enhance aerodynamic efficiency, I actually think they've pulled it off really well. They are unique, they are truly different, and unlike some other aero wheel designs, they actually look quite smart. That wasn't a pun. Now, you get these very round sort of side mirrors, which I quite like, and of course you have deployable door handles, which can be activated by tapping on the thing, and you see a little Smart logo out here, and there's also a little puddle light that comes out when you unlock the car. There are also lights within the door handles themselves, allowing you to easily locate them at night. But of course, when the car is locked or when the car is driving, they sit flush with the bodywork, again to improve aerodynamics. There are a couple more things I'd like to point out. Firstly, you have these roof rails up here, which as far as I can tell are non-functional, but they certainly make the car look good. Your charging flap is here, and of course you have the Smart logo here on the C-pillar. In Pro and Premium cars, this also illuminates when you lock and unlock the vehicle, which again, I think makes the car look a little bit more unique. I really like the way this car looks. I also appreciate the floating roof design with this nice little C-pillar kink here, which again just makes this car look really different, which is very hard to achieve in today's world. Now the rear of the Smart #1 also again looks very unique. You have this very clean rear end. I mean, not literally clean, this car is shockingly dirty, but you have a very clean design with very few sort of protruding edges and so on, again to make this car look very unique. You have a pert little spoiler up here, you have a very small rear windscreen wiper, which I appreciate hugely. You have the LED light bar that goes all the way across, which I can illuminate if I unlock the car, I think. And it comes on in this lovely little sequence, which you can actually change via the infotainment system inside. Now you have a little bit of design elements down here to make the car look a little bit tougher than it is, but overall I think the treatment does look pretty good. And if you ask me, this is where the design is most important, because given the fact that these cars are still quite fast, even in this guise, this is what most people will be seeing more often. Now via this little key, which looks wonderful and feels great, mind you, you can open the boot. There's also a little button underneath that little hatch there, where you will reveal a pretty decent amount of space. Now it is worth noting that compared to this car's rivals at the BMW iX1 and the Mercedes-Benz EQA, the boot is ever so slightly smaller. However, this is still a usable enough size for 4 passengers or 4 adult passengers and their luggage should you want to go away over a weekend. And more importantly, there are no charge cables to be seen here because they are hidden down here. There is a little bit more space underneath the boot floor, which means that you can manage your space a little bit better. Now in terms of features back here, you do get some tie-down hooks, you get some netting on either side, and you also get a 12-volt socket on the right side of the vehicle, which means should you want to vacuum clean your car, you can just plug in your vacuum cleaner there. And again, overall, it just seems pretty intelligently designed. If you need more space, the rear seats can fold flat 60/40, and there's even a central pass-through if you have long items that you want to carry within the car while still maintaining enough seating for 4. Now, the thing about the Smart is that it is very much driven by design, but Smart is most proud of the interior. And I can understand why, because its interior is designed so beautifully. You have this gorgeous white acrylic sort of thing that goes all the way across. Now this isn't acrylic actually, because this is much better quality. And because of this use of very bright colors, it really does sort of lighten what would otherwise be a very dark interior. Now in Malaysia, the upholstery options are mostly black and dark because that is apparently what Malaysians prefer, which is a shame because the Smart #1 is available with lots of funky interior options in other countries. However, that aside, the interior specification is pretty good. So up front you have this massive central infotainment screen. I really do mean massive, which is both bright and smart, and it's sharp to use. The graphics are fantastic. Everything responds really quickly. And as far as I'm concerned, this, I think, has to be one of the best infotainment system experiences I've had within sort of the compact entry-level premium EVs out there. It's really snappy, it's really easy to use, and because this is a Smart, there are some really funky touches in here. For example, the entire UI feels a lot more youthful and fun, which is not what you'd say of the Mercedes-Benz EQA or the BMW iX1. You've got this lovely little Fox avatar that responds to you when you ask it to do things. You have a fantastic voice assistant which does the majority of things that you need it to do. You also have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and everything just looks great. And supplementing this is another sort of pillbox screen up ahead, which gives you your more important driving functions. You have your speed, your regen, and so on. You also get a little bit of a GPS navigation readout on the right, or if you don't have GPS going, you can also just show whatever you're playing via your music. And as if that's not enough, I also have a full color heads-up display right in my line of sight, which again gives me all the pertinent information I need, including a display to show me if there are vehicles in my blind spot. This is something that I've only ever seen before from Mazdas, which I really appreciate because it means that even before I indicate or attempt to make a maneuver, I already know if there's a vehicle in my blind spot within my line of sight, even before I check my mirrors where there is also another indicator light there. Now, talking about this pillbox screen, the reason why I find this particularly important is because this car comes with level 2.5 or level 2 plus semi-autonomy systems. And so this display will actually show me when the vehicle is moving, what it sees via the other lanes, and so on. And so when I do have the car driving itself, so to speak, with my hands on the wheel, naturally, the fact that I can see what the car sees means that I can react sooner to something that the car may not be able to see that I can. That gives me a little bit more confidence in terms of using the car on a day-to-day basis, which I appreciate hugely. And in terms of driver monitoring, I do need to point this out. There is actually a camera set into this little dent here, which looks at your eyes to make sure that you're paying attention to the road. it also seems to read out driver fatigue, and so I must look awful because every time I get in this car within the first 10 minutes, the fatigue alarm goes off, which is nice to know. Now beyond that, you do have actual stalks, which is nice. The left side controls your indicator as well as your wiper functions, and your right controls your gears, and so it moves and works a lot like what you get from a Mercedes-Benz. Unlike a Mercedes-Benz, however, you have physical buttons here on the steering wheel, and so the left side controls your semi-autonomy features, your right side controls your trip as well as your audio functionality, and it also manipulates whatever is in that pillbox screen should you need it. There's also an illuminated smart logo here, which I like a lot. In terms of usability, I mean, the steering wheel is very nicely designed, it's nice and comfortable to use, and that comfort continues to other areas of the car. These seats, for example, are very, very comfortable, although they do lack side support, which means you may see yourself sort of sliding here and there if you're driving enthusiastically, but they are ventilated on both sides with memory functionality, which is tied to the driver profile, so you can have up to 3 or 4 driver profiles, each with different mirror and seat settings, and all of that will be synced up to the car. There are also lots of intelligent touches. So you have this pad here, which is replicated on this side, which help cushion your knee if you're resting your foot or your leg sort of up here. And on the right side, you have more soft touch materials here, which kind of wrap around very nicely to where you'd put your arm. You have more sort of white plastic up here, which again just looks really nice. Now, on other things I like, I also appreciate the practicality. You have a space here with your wireless charger, your 12-volt socket, as well as 2 USB-C ports. You have a massive space underneath this central tunnel for you to put even more things. You have your 2 cup holders here, as well as a little space for you to put a phone should you want to. You have an absolutely massive center console here, replete with cooling, and it's deep enough to hold a bottle. There's even a little holder here for you to hide or keep your charging cards, again to add a little bit more practicality to your car. There's also a sunglasses holder here, something I always like, and a massive panoramic sunroof, which again lets in a lot of light into the smart #1. If I wanted to complain, there are a couple of things that I don't appreciate. Firstly, on the doors themselves, in areas that you do not touch, this is important to point out, the plastic is a little bit hard and a little bit scratchy. It's very easy to locate the sort of cheap plastic, which cannot be said of, again, the BMW iX1 or the Mercedes-Benz EQA, because I think that they managed to hide the cheaper plastics a little bit better. However, everything here is nice and soft, which is nice, but the other thing that I don't appreciate is the fact that these windows are not tinted. Now, if you wind back the video a little bit, you will notice that the rear windows are all quite dark, but those are not tints either because they come as standard from the factory that way. And as such, it also means that this panoramic sunroof is also not tinted. Now, when I drive cars with panoramic sunroofs, I tend to leave it open because I love having all of that light into the cabin and making the cabin feel a little bit more airy and sort of nice and free and clear. However, because we live in a tropical country and this, again, panoramic sunroof is not tinted, it gets very hot, so I've been keeping it shut. However, mercifully, when you do keep it shut, the sun blind does a pretty good job at blocking out all of that heat, which is nice. Oh, did I mention the Beats audio system? That's pretty good. Now in the rear, with this seat set up in the comfort access position, which is very similar to how someone of about 6'1" or 6'2" would sit in this car, you'll see there is plenty of legroom and plenty of headroom, again despite that panoramic sunroof and despite the seat being set up in a unrealistic position, as it were. Now, because it's a ground-up EV, of course the platform is optimized for this. So the floor is almost completely flat, which means there's plenty of space to put your feet, and if I were to stretch my feet out in front of me, you can see I do have a decent amount of thigh support. However, these seats do not go as far as I'd like them to, so there is a little bit of hanging, but it's really not that bad because, again, the support you do get is more than adequate. Now, in terms of rear accoutrements, you have a USB-A and USB-C port. You have 2 central aircon vents here, which is nicely sort of laid out with this very nice brushed metal finish here. And you do get a couple of cup holders, which deploy via the central armrest here. Now, in terms of practicality, you do have door pockets here, which are nice and large, big enough to hold a bottle. And of course, you have ISOFIX mounts on either side of the seats, which are accessible via these nice sort of flip-up covers, which means you're not going to lose them. Now, A quick aside on the ISOFIX mounts, or having child seats within this car, the doors themselves open relatively wide, which means even fitting a bulky rear-facing child seat should not be too much of a hassle. But of course, if you want to have even more practicality, in addition to the two ISOFIX mounts back here, you also have another ISOFIX mount on the front passenger seat, which means if you want to have a child there, you can disable the front airbag and you can have the child seat set there instead. That is something that not a lot of cars have in general. So the fact that the Smart #1 has this, despite being an entry-level premium EV crossover, is commendable. Now, the thing about the #1 is that the way it drives is perhaps the biggest convincer for me that this is not a premium pretender, that this is a proper premium vehicle. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? Now, Smart is very keen to point out the fact that the #1 and the Smart brand itself is a premium proposition, which is why you shouldn't be too surprised by the fact that this is a 220,000 ringgit crossover SUV hatchback thing. Now, under the bonnet, there is a little bit of space, but more importantly, there is no drive motor at the front, because this being the premium, it's rear-wheel drive with only one motor powering the rear axle. As such, power figures are reasonable. They are expected. They are as what you'd get from other vehicles within this class. But if you ask me, 0 to 100 in 5.7 seconds is still pretty good. And of course, the top speed is 180 kilometers an hour, regardless of which variant you go for. Now, of course, many will argue that you only have to pay an extra 30,000 ringgit to get into a Brabus, but I personally believe that this is the better bet. Firstly, you get 40 kilometers more range via the WLTP cycle, and on top of that, the performance in this is more than enough. 5.7 seconds to 100 is decent. Why do you need any more power than that? Of course, it's nice when you're trying to do red light drag strip racing, or whatever the hell it is that other people do when they have cars that powerful, but honestly, this is all you really need. And then when you add to that the fact that the Smart #1 is so comprehensively equipped, there is really no need for you to step up any further. Between the Premium and the Brabus, the only thing that you gain is that extra electric motor over the front axle. Aside from that, there is really nothing else. As such, to me, there is very little reason then to upgrade to the higher performance model, given the fact that this car has everything you really want or need. Now, even though this car doesn't come with dual pane glass or double laminated windows, or acoustic glass as Tesla likes to call it, this interior remains very nice and very comfortable, very much in keeping with its premium aspirations. In fact, I'd argue that this is quieter than some traditional internal combustion vehicles. Cars like the Mercedes-Benz E-Class and BMW 5 Series come to mind. Of course, there is a little bit of road noise coming from those 19-inch alloy wheels, but that is to be expected not only from wheels this large, but also from a car that is this quiet. EVs generally suffer from a little bit more pronounced road roar on the basis that because there is no engine noise, you get a lot more intrusion from other things. Now, that is not to say that this car is in any way uncomfortable or unmanageable at all. This is again in line with other premium EVs within this segment, especially within this price category. And so the #1 does pretty well. But where it stands out to me is in terms of comfort. Now, the #1, when it was first previewed to the press via a closed-door session with some left-hand drive imported models from China, it was noticed that this car was very soft, to the point where it actually eroded a degree of driver confidence, because the car would wallow and lean to the point where it would make you feel quite unsettled. However, with the Smart #1 that we're driving now, it's quite clear that the boffins at ProNet have done a little bit of work to make this car even more usable, because the suspension is incredibly well judged. This is the same suspension setup that we get in Europe with this Smart brand, and so you get a pretty good amount of body control while not compromising in terms of overall ride quality. So you get this very well judged, well balanced ride, and it just feels like a car that's really well engineered. Add to that, there are no squeaks or rattles in here at all, and again, you come away feeling that this is a really nice car. Now, in terms of motorway cruising, again, you get a little bit of road noise, but there is very little in terms of wind noise intruding into the cabin. And so maintaining a cruise at 110, 120 kilometers an hour is quite easy and fuss-free. And of course, that is aided further by this car's level 2.5 or 2 plus semi-autonomy system. Now, to explain this a little bit better, ultimately this is a level 2 semi-autonomous driving system with things like adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, lane centering, blind spot monitoring, as you heard earlier. And that's all the sort of stuff that you're used to getting from most cars that offer systems like this. The differentiating factor here is the fact that the Smart #1 goes a step above by offering things like autonomous lane changing. So the vehicle will monitor the lanes around you, and when you have the Pro Pilot, or rather the Smart Pilot Assist activated, if you half press the indicator stop, like you would when you want like a quick 3 flash sort of thing, the vehicle will actually check to see if the lane is clear and execute a lane change automatically. Of course, your hands have to be on the wheel at all times with eyes focused on the road ahead of you. But in doing that, the car will do the majority of the work for you, again taking out one more little bit of effort than you otherwise would in any other vehicle, which means that cruising in this should be even more effortless. And then there's the Hello Smart app.
How may I help you?
No, I'm not talking to you. Now, the thing about the app is that for those of us who've used Protons or have gotten familiar with, say, Mercedes-Benz's and stuff like that, who have systems like that via their connected services, the app may not seem all that special because, of course, you can lock and unlock the car, flash the lights, get the horn going, open the windows, turn on the climate control. This is all very commonplace. What is unique, however, is the fact that with the app, the name of which I cannot say in full, otherwise the car will go off on me again, is that you can also manage charging. So the Smart app actually comes with its own sort of credit system where 1 ringgit is equivalent to 10 smart points or something like that. And those points can then be used to manage your charging. Now, compared to every other EV, there is no other EV on the market that offers an app that manages charging the way Smart does. And so that means that in your ownership experience of this car, it is very much a whole sort of thing where charging is done via the Smart app, controlling your car is done via the Smart app, watching your charging status is done via the Smart app. Now, compared to every other Smart app for an EV out there, none of them integrate charging into it the way Smart does. And so that means that your end-to-end user experience is one that is, shall we say, curated via the brand. This is something that I think a lot of consumers will appreciate, particularly for those who are getting into an EV for the first time, because it means that you can be completely reliant on Smart. And on top of that, if you use the built-in navigation system in this car, because it knows where chargers are, it also knows charger availability in real time. It means that, for example, if you were to ask the car to navigate to somewhere, at the moment I have 55% battery. If I were to, say, try to navigate to Johor, it will tell me that I will arrive in Johor Bahru with negative 66% battery, meaning I won't have enough range. And via a couple of buttons, I can add 1 or 2 or 3 or as many charging stops as I'd like, really, along the route, and the car will figure it out. On top of that, because the car knows which charging stations have stations available, it means that it really does minimize downtime or waiting time when you're looking for a charger. This directly addresses a huge concern that people have when it comes to driving an EV long distance, because your car will be able to sort it out for you. And that is where I believe that Smart lives up to its name. Because thus far, the experience of driving this, charging this, living with this over the last week has been truly seamless. And it has been seamless because of all of this integration that Smart has done prior to launch. A lot of people asked why it took so long for Smart to enter the market, and this is exactly why. Because prior to arrival, they wanted everything to be buttoned down and sorted. They wanted the app to be fully integrated with major charge point operators like Jom Charge, Gantari, and so on. And they're working on adding more, or so I've been told, although that highly depends on whether or not these charge point operators want to work with them. But in any case, because all of that was buttoned down prior to launch, it means that upon arrival, like these cars are now, everything is done. There is nothing else to worry about. You're not waiting for updates, you're not waiting for future changes in OTA, software updates and upgrades and so on, because it's all done. Of course, the car can have, it can receive over-the-air updates in the future should there be other features or...
Please take a break.
It does that a lot. Should there be other features or optimizations in the future, of course your smart #1 can be updated over the air via the car's built-in SIM card or via a Wi-Fi connection, which is faster still. But out of the box, this car needs nothing because everything has been polished and sorted prior to delivery. And this is emblematic of a brand and a distributor that understands what car buyers actually want and what cars themselves actually need. Because there is a certain polish to the execution of this car that is truly befitting a brand like Smart. Nothing in here feels haphazard, nothing in here feels like a bodge fix. Everything in here is polished and settled and screwed together exactly the way you'd expect it to be from a car that is commanding this sort of money. That cannot be said of a certain American electric car maker, where it always feels like it's a little bit of a work in progress. But more importantly, compared to vehicles like the Mercedes-Benz EQA and the BMW iX1, the Smart #1 benefits by having a lot more interior space, a much better rear half of the cabin, where you're not seated so low that your knees feel like they're around your ears. And again, that app is truly something else because it means that, again, you can manage end-to-end usability of your car, from booking your vehicle to making service appointments should you need it, and all sorts of other paraphernalia that comes with ownership of a smart vehicle can all be done via the app. And between that, this premium experience, the premium ownership and purchase experience that, again, that American car maker doesn't give you, this makes it almost peerless. Of course, if you were to ask me, what if I want my compact electric crossover to be fun to drive? I would point you in the direction of the BMW iX1. Because while, yes, it is slightly smaller and rear legroom is slightly hampered, it is a better car to drive. And so if you are a one person per car household, one person driving 2 passengers, that sort of thing, then you may benefit or you may appreciate the iX1's slightly better, slightly improved driving dynamics. And of course, if you like the Mercedes-Benz badge, then you have to look at a Mercedes-Benz EQA because it's a Mercedes-Benz and that's what you want. But if you're being pragmatic about it, and more importantly, if you want something that is truly different, something that really stands out, not just in the way it looks, but also in the way that it goes about its business, truly the Smart #1 is different. This car makes me feel the same way I did when I used to drive a Volkswagen Beetle, the last Beetle that I reviewed, because it's just fun. This car has a personality and character to it that a lot of cars and car makers nowadays simply do not have. Geely and Mercedes-Benz have very clearly geared this car towards people who appreciate funky little touches, funny little Easter eggs and that sort of thing. I mean, it's visible via the little details that you see around the windows. You see that from the little Fox avatar. You see that from the way the UI has been designed to just put a smile on your face, and the way this car has over the last weekend wished me Merry Christmas several times. It's just fun and funky and soulful and colorful, and it's just a wonderful, whimsical place to be. Whimsy is not something you often find in a car, and I love the fact that the #1 is whimsical. And when you add to that this is, beyond that, a really usable, practical, fantastic little car, which is not that small, it just makes it an unbeatable package in my eyes. It's just a shame that I can't afford $250,000 for an EV just yet. So that wraps up, rather melancholically, the review of the Smart #1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so you're notified every time we make a new upload. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All the links are in the description below. If you'd like to join our WhatsApp channel, that link is down there too. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and jangan bodoh.